Hey everybody, happy Tuesday. Okay, welcome to Zoom Proof Your Brand. And today I just wanted to start to answer some of the questions that I've been getting from my own clients because we are all on Zoom a lot more than we were in the past. And this is definitely not about creating this picture perfect space, but it is about figuring out how to know what to wear, how to feel confident, how to feel comfortable, and have a space that is genuinely on brand so that it can be a strategic piece of your marketing. So before I get started, I want to give you a little bit of a framework in terms of how I like to think about Zoom as a piece of your marketing. So when I am working with clients, we're going through each piece of your image. And there's 5 pieces that I take people through. And the first is just, for starters, having a powerful personal brand. And the second is having a cohesive team image. The third is a space that really primes clients to buy, and that can be virtual or physical. And the fourth is your online persona, and the fifth is just an exceptional client experience. So what's interesting about Zoom is it really touches on every single one of these. If you're in a sales call on Zoom, you really are priming a client to buy. If you are delivering something on Zoom, you're delivering a client experience. So it really is a touch point for everyone. So it's a piece of marketing that now needs to have sort of a strategy behind it and also a system behind it. So what I want to outline today is really what the heck to wear. You're at home, you may not be going into the office. What the heck do you need to put on? And then how do you help your team figure out what the best thing is for them to also be wearing? And then lastly, there's just a really key piece no matter what is happening, pandemic or not, which is an idea of consistency. So I'm going to talk a little bit about that. And then I know a lot of you sent in a ton of questions ahead of time, so I will for sure get to those. And if anybody has any that come up while I'm going through this, just feel free to pop them in chat and we'll go through them. So let's start on the how the heck do you know what to wear? I think we've all been in the scenario of, okay, 11 o'clock Zoom call and I'm still wearing yoga clothes or whatever it is. And you have to figure that out. So my first thing is to really consider shifting the perspective of getting dressed. It's not just for looking amazing on camera. It's genuinely about tapping into the essence of who you are and how you can show up as your best self. And that is going to come through on camera as well. So when you start to shift the perspective, it becomes less of a chore in terms of, great, I have to, get ready for Zoom at 11 o'clock, and more of just simply part of you tapping into the best version of yourself and growing the business that you really want. So it truly is kind of an opportunity. But all that being said, I know you just want to know what the heck do I wear. It's kind of an interesting conundrum because you have a very small space to tell a story. And ordinarily you are walking into a room and you have so much more to play with. People get to see your entire outfit. They get to see your shoes. They get to see all the things. They get to, hear you speak, shake your hand. And now we just have a little box that's like chest up. So how do you truly tell the story of who you are? So for starters, those of you who have an established dress code, go back and look at it. You put it in there for a reason, hopefully. Hopefully it's in aligned with your core values. I'll talk a little bit more about that in a second. But just because you're at home, it doesn't mean we sort of throw that out the window and we get to wear t-shirts and whatever else. Go back to that dress code and then ask yourself, all right, is this genuinely going to be the best solution for how I want to perceive myself? Is this the online persona I want? Is this going to prime a client to buy if I'm going to be on a sales call? And if the answer is yes, then allow yourself to either show up exactly as you would going into the office, or if it just seems uncomfortable because you're in your house, you're not in the office, nobody's pretending here, then just take it one step down from that. If you wear suits, you're in suit jail all day long in a physical office, remove the jacket. Have a beautiful blouse if you're a lady. Remove the jacket and just have a shirt and tie if you are a guy. There is huge value in my mind to creating a professional persona on camera when you have some sort of collar. And I know that like if I would have heard myself say that 5 years ago, I would have sort of started twitching. But I'll show you in a second what happens. But like, it really does make a difference with just having kind of a finishing piece, whether it's a jacket, whether it's a top that has some sort of detail at the neck. It can make a huge difference. So I actually wore a jacket today so that you could visually see the difference of wearing a jacket versus not. So I'm just gonna like take this off really fast. So what I'm wearing underneath is just a cute little leather bodysuit, you know, and here we are. So great, that's fine. There's nothing wrong with it, but it has a little bit more pop with a jacket. That leads me to jewelry. If I didn't have this on, I'm gonna turn it around. There's just not a lot of story to tell. Then people have to perceive me simply from the background and everything else, which is not a bad thing, but you have an opportunity by wearing accessories and wearing, you know, a jacket or a finishing piece to really help people figure out more about you and who you are. So it's a cool tool to use. This is very graceful, putting a jacket back on. Anywho, all right, so you have to be the judge for your business. Not every business needs a jacket, for sure, hands down. It may be completely inappropriate, so there's no blanket statement. I just want to show you how having like finishing pieces like jewelry and like having a jacket can make a huge difference. So in general, go back to the dress code that you've already set up. Whether that's like in your mind of like, here's what I wear when I'm networking, here's my sort of professional wear. And if it feels more comfortable, just take it one step down. So that if that means that you end up in a t-shirt, then it may be right for your business. You have to figure out what is right for you and your brand, and then ensure that it actually looks the way you think it does on camera. So the way to test that is literally get on Zoom, have a look at yourself. If you're getting dressed and you're going somewhere else to a studio where you're going to be filming or something, literally just take a little selfie with your phone. That is going to show you all sorts of clues and cues as to what is actually happening in terms of what's being perceived behind the camera. So one thing that does happen behind the camera, and I learned this one of the first times that I went on television, and the same is true whether you're doing Zoom or TV or video or whatever, is number one, you don't know which side your bangs are to move them out of your eyes. Number two, when you get dressed, the camera sort of dumbs down what you're wearing. So like you think, oh, I look so cute and I'm all dressed. And then you sit behind the camera and it doesn't have quite the pop as it does in person. So if you can add a detail that allows you to continue to sort of convey the professionalism, convey the essence that is important for your brand, that's really important. So the lesson there is, I think one of the first times I went on TV, I wore just it was a beautiful dress. It was blue, it was knit, and it had a pretty neckline. But on camera, it just translated almost like just a boring t-shirt. And you couldn't see my shoes because I was sitting down. So just having fabrics and patterns and small details that really kind of do have a pop can make a huge difference. So lots of questions came in about things to skip. And I don't want to put like a blanket statement on like, do not wear this, do not wear that. But I will encourage you to, again, go back to the perspective of you are telling a story with a very small box chest up. So really consider what that's going to look like. For women in particular, we have a lot of like interesting necklines, cold shoulders. Like there's so many options of tops that you can wear. And a lot of times, if you're not careful, it ends up just kind of looking strange, having like just one shoulder cut out. Or I made a video one time at a store for a client to show them how to tie something. And I was wearing a strapless jumpsuit. And it didn't matter because we just needed to get the job done. But going back and looking at it, it was just me looking naked, tying a scarf. So just kind of think through necklines, things like that. What I'm trying to think of other like do not wears, but like just don't wear things that are wrinkled. We're going to talk about that in a minute. Things that look like pajamas. The real key is just making an effort and looking like you showed up making an effort. So let's pop over. I've got a couple of questions that I wrote down that came in as well, that I'll come back to on how to get dressed. But let's switch over to what happens if you need to talk to your team about getting dressed. So here's a scenario that happened to a client of mine where somebody actually sent her a screenshot of someone from her leadership team dressed in a way that they just didn't feel was on brand. Oh, hey, Sarah. I know my bracelet is jingling. I didn't think that through. So here's another do not wear jingles. Yes. Good one. So anyway, so one of her clients sends her the screenshot of somebody from her leadership team and just is simply just letting this person know, like, okay, I'm not sure that this is completely the brand that you are looking for. So what do you do now? Because you're not in front of them and all of the time, and you can't actually see sometimes what they're wearing. So for starters, the number one step is ensuring that every time that you are leading your team in anything, even if it's just like a happy hour or a 5-minute meeting that you just need to like tell somebody something. And I know this seems like a pain in the butt, but really consider what it is that you want from your team and the cohesive look that you want, and ensure that you are showing up as that person. And not just that person, I want you to take it one level up. The idea is to really create and maintain your impression of increase, which is an idea that you're constantly increasing and helping other people's lives. And if you look exactly the same wearing your pajamas or your yoga pants as your team members, then you're losing that part. So ensure that you in general are the biggest role model. I think I tell the story all of the time, but one of the things I noticed when I first started my business, I would ask this is when I was really doing a lot of closet editing and working with a lot of women who were in the workplace. And I would say, okay, what does your boss wear? Like, what are your role models wearing? And what their role models were wearing was often abysmal. I mean, one time it was capri pants and like ugly white sneakers. I'm not saying there's anything wrong with that, but if you're growing a business, if you are trying to, serve a certain mission, then that's not going to get you anywhere, especially if you're trying to lead a team that needs to have a cohesive look. So, summary, you be the role model, you show up as you want your team to show up, and one step higher. That's key. The second real kind of caveat to this is when you do need to have a conversation with your team is before you get the email that's like, hey, here's a screenshot of this person from your team. And it's actually a cool opportunity. It's for sure one of the reasons that I have the job that I do, because it is challenging to go in and speak to people about the way they feel, about their image, about how they are presenting themselves. And you do have to be careful. But it's also a really cool opportunity to sort of go in and remind them and evangelize the core values, the whole reason that your business exists, to make the impact both on your team's lives and the clients that you serve. So instead of just coming in and having a meeting about, all right, y'all, we got to really step this up. We got to make sure that when we're on camera, we actually look the part. Back it up a second and go back to those core values that you established. You established them for a reason, and remind them that if you are a business where core value is that we really care, I'm going to use that one because it's super easy. We really care. We care about everything. Then if you've got people showing up with wrinkled shirts, wet hair, whatever it is out of alignment with that core value. So it's a cool opportunity to go back and remind everybody why it is you do what you do. So take it to the core values, and then from there, actually put in your dress code a virtual clause. And until COVID, when I was doing dress codes for clients, I was not putting in a virtual clause. And now it is super important. And, honestly, it was important then as well, but it's really important to maintain the brand image that you want, whether you are in person or behind a camera screen. So it doesn't need to be complicated. It just needs to be as simple as a small paragraph reminding them of here is the level of dress that you are looking for, whether they are well, you need to have a separate, here's the regular dress code, put the virtual clause in, here's what we're looking for, here's what we're not looking for. And the part that a lot of people forget that's super helpful is actually give people pictures. I will actually go in and create Pinterest boards because they're so easy to update and you have to keep them updated, otherwise they won't work. But create a Pinterest board of what you are and are not looking for. And it's really easy to find screen grabs all over the place. You can go to YouTube. I was actually on YouTube yesterday looking at something, and there was a woman teaching a tutorial, and it was a great tutorial, but I'm sidetracked by the fact that there's like kids' toys under the window. Her curtains are kind of wonky, so I'm wondering like why she hung those like that. I'm wondering all of these things that have nothing to do with anything that she's talking about, but it's because the camera is faced the way it is. So, and we'll move into creating a space in just a second, but I can't stress enough, just having pictures is so handy for everybody involved, both do's and don'ts, and do it on a Pinterest board so it can easily be updated. Okay, so with your team, biggest thing, be a role model, give them very clear instructions on what you're looking for and give them examples. So now you've got to actually create the space behind you. And that is, it's honestly comical at some points these days. There were times in the beginning of quarantine when my husband was home, both my kids were home, my desk was being used for something, the dining room table was being used for something, the kitchen was being used for something. I mean, it was just a mess. It was very hard to create consistency with where I knew that I would have a safe and quiet place to Zoom. But that's just the deal. So you got to kind of take a moment, and it doesn't take long, but like figure out the spots in your house that are going to be awesome Zoom locations. We're not trying to pretend we have like class A office space. We know you're at home. You don't need, the Pottery Barn, everything. Like we just need a small area. It can be a corner. It can be a bookshelf that you sort of back your computer. You set up a table in front of it. I mean, it could be anything, but the idea is to really kind of create a space that's going to have some alignment with the brand aesthetic that you've already set up, both online and in person. So, story from this one, I had a client recently talking about doing a sales training, and I don't remember how many people were there, but it was quite a few. It was like 50 people, and they're doing this really important training, and there's this one guy who was doing the training from a hotel room. So sure, everybody's on the road doing their thing, no problem. But in the hotel room, it is challenging to move the furniture how you would want it, or make the desk so it's not facing the bed, that sort of thing. But he just took it to a whole nother level with just like whatever. He didn't make the bed. There were clothes on the floor. There were plates everywhere. And so instead of everyone focusing on what was happening with the training, they're all basically making fun of this guy and the way that he has kept up his hotel room. So it was really hard for my client to bring everybody back from that and to have everybody focus. But that's what happens. It's like the YouTube tutorial I saw. Like you're constantly like, oh, what's happening? What's happening behind you? So the idea is really kind of creating a space that allows you to be the focus. And one of the simplest ways to do things is add books, add flowers, use a bookshelf, use a blank wall, move the art in your house, whatever you need to do. It's amazing how you can repurpose things. And then the other key is positioning yourself. There are lots of times that I'm seeing cameras up at the ceiling fan, cameras up people's nose. You got to figure out how to sort that out, whether it's stacking stuff on books, ensuring that the camera is, either at eye level or a little bit above. And that helps to create another image that allows people to actually focus on you and not what's happening on your ceiling. So what happens now when you have team members at home? This is challenging too, because you don't know what their homes look like. This isn't relevant for their job. So it's become something that I've been talking a lot about with my clients. I mean, do you create virtual backgrounds that everybody uses? Do you create screens that are actual physical screens that allow everything behind you to be blocked? These are all options. I found that a lot of times if you just take the time to send in one of your leadership team with each person, that you can help people actually stay in just a very small area, or just have somebody send you a picture and then you can literally suggest, like, look, if you just stack some books and added a plant or whatever it is, that's going to be perfectly on brand. But what we have is people trying to find a quiet space. They have a desk in their bedroom, it's facing the bed like at the hotel room, and that is what we want to try and eliminate, where the background is more interesting for people to sort of check out than what you're actually saying and doing. So the easiest thing that I've found to do that makes people feel comfortable is just asking people to just, take a quick screenshot of your Zoom, or when you are on Zoom, have a little conversation about it, the same as you would with the dress code, and literally have everybody kind of take a look at their own background and ask if it really is aligned and matches the messaging that you were talking about with the core values and how they really exist to help people. Okay, so we're making this short and sweet, and I'll get to questions in just a second. But the last piece of this is consistency. And consistency is really what people want, not perfection. I mean, perfection is not real anyway. I had toothpaste in my hair earlier, and I was like, oh, great. But we got that out. I mean, nothing is perfect. So we just have to do our best to really genuinely show up as our best selves and sort of switch that perspective of like, all right, Zoom is a pain in the ass because I got to find the spot to do it. I got to figure out how to find a quiet space, and just look at it as an opportunity to really allow others to get to know you more. And so you get to kind of like do you and be you. So you have to create both a wardrobe and a space that matches what you are building and who you are. I talked to somebody yesterday who we were talking about their core values, and one of the core values had to do with positive energy. And one of the most important parts of positive energy at this particular business was the idea of fun. And so having a completely like stark, everybody being super boring was actually out of alignment with what they were trying to do. So we came up with some ways to, add some fun to that. And the last thing I'll say, I actually want to touch on a couple other details and then I'll switch to that. So ladies, we definitely have a little bit more of a challenge jumping on Zoom than our male counterparts, because we have a hair situation, we have a makeup situation, and I do highly recommend that you put more makeup on than you normally would. And I know a question came in on this, and I'm going to look at it in just a second. But what happens behind the camera is you can hardly tell that you have makeup on. I think I've told the story a million times of when I actually did a photo shoot. I did my own makeup. It was disastrous because I took great pictures, but it looked like I had no makeup on. And there's nothing wrong with that, but it wasn't on brand for me. So that is key, is actually really kind of learning how to do your makeup. So hang on, let me pause. I wrote these down. Somebody wrote, okay, so what if you don't wear a lot of makeup normally? Will that look inconsistent? And that's a really good question. And I think this keeps coming up, so I may end up doing a training on this. If people have an interest, just tap in comments and I'll make sure I let you know when it happens. But so the challenge is that you want to find this balance of wearing enough makeup so that you don't feel like a completely different person, but that it's actually showing up on camera. And the main thing that you're going to be looking for is really kind of elaborating your eyes. So like mascara can go a huge far way. Same with like something as simple as like a tinted moisturizer. You don't have to feel like you're putting a lot of makeup on, but you do just kind of like smooth things out. And then, I mean, if we're gonna really throw me a bone here, you really don't want to do it, get like a tinted chapstick. Tinted chapstick, tinted moisturizer, and a little mascara can go really far. Okay, let's see. We have another question about this. All right, how about the problem with feeling like it's a bit much to dress up and do makeup for Zoom calls? So I think it happens all the time, and it's funny because you're like, all right, I was wearing my yoga pants a minute ago, and now I am dressed up, and it's, here we are. So you're not trying to sort of pretend like you're not at home, but if the key to your success is being powerful and looking successful and looking chic, then you have to ensure that you're doing that no matter what. And so, kind of like I said, going earlier, is like just step it down one time. Like if a jacket's too much, take off the jacket. Ensure you're kind of wearing, some jewelry and some, and do your hair. And so it definitely can feel like overkill, but the idea is that you are going back to that core value of like, we care. Like you are showing that no matter what's happening, pandemic, not, you're always going to bring your best self. It doesn't matter where. So hopefully that helps with that. What was the second part of that, Sarah? Yeah, everyone knows you're home. I mean, and everybody else is home too. But again, it's the idea of like shifting your perspective of why in the world, like why do you get dressed? Whenever I teach the idea of getting dressed, you're getting dressed for two people. The first is yourself, always. And the second is for having other people feel confident in you. So you are getting dressed so that you feel confident and so that other people feel confident in you. And that's a huge perspective other than just, we were all taught to get dressed of like, this is what you wear to school. This is what you wear to church. This is not ladylike. This is not appropriate. This is whatever. And now it's more of an opportunity of like, no, it's just a game of like, how do I show up and be the best version of myself to go get the things done that I want? All right. So Sarah, this is a good question, girl. So like with your small team, why do you have to look, like you're dressed to the nines? So again, you're leading a destination. So right now, every single thing that we are doing on Zoom, on any virtual anything, it's feeding the results that we're getting 6 months from now, 6 years from now. So again, the idea is not to like, you don't have to put on full suit regalia. We're not putting on our prom dress, but create a look that is going to give your team confidence in your leadership. So Sarah, for you, I know you, and I know some things in your closet. So for you, it may be as simple as some of the really cute shells that you wear under the suits. You just wear that in front of your team without the jacket, with your hair and a little mascara, just a little. But that's a great question, because I think this is where you kind of, all of us just kind of like, well, I'm not in front of a judge. I'm not selling. I'm not in front of an important client. But again, 50% of the reason that you're getting dressed is for you. So, okay, let me switch over to some of the questions that have come in before so that I make sure I cover these. Okay. Do you recommend wearing brand colors? This is a really good question. So there's nothing wrong with wearing brand colors. Like, knock yourself out, be on brand. But here's what happens. Particularly with ladies, I don't see this happen as much with men typically. You get so caught up in brand colors that you lose your sense of style power because the priority goes to finding the right color. So I say sure, but with caution. And I would never box yourself into like, I can only be seen on videos in blue, or I can only be seen in red because these are my two colors. I would, I just wouldn't do that. And here's the other thing. If you are going to repurpose any Zoom stuff or you're repurposing any video stuff, people start wondering, does she only have one blue shirt? So yeah, let people skip wondering that. Okay. Somebody asked, is it okay to Zoom from my bedroom if I don't have any other space? So this is a big one. There are a couple of local news anchors where I live that I see them Zooming from their bedroom all of the time. And I really wish that they could just pull the desk out from the wall and create a background behind you. So like if there's no other solution, sure, part of this is innovation and make it work. But there has to be a wall or a corner or somewhere that isn't like, hey, did you see the foot of my bed? Here's all the other stuff happening in my room, because that's what people are thinking about and not the story or the message that you're trying to tell. And that's just my thing is I would just highly recommend pull it out from the wall and turn yourself around. Okay, what else do we have? Okay, lighting. That's a good question. Somebody wants to know, what kind of lighting do you recommend? So I am not a lighting expert by any means, but I can tell you that lighting makes a huge difference. And you don't have to spend much money on lighting. There's so many various options, the kind that like clip onto a laptop. There's the ring light that you can set in front of you. There's simply moving a lamp from another room and putting it in front of you. Often you have to sort of play with the light depending on what time of day it is. But lighting is huge. Here, actually, we'll do this. I'll play with my lighting. Hold on. Okay, so like if I turn, let's see if this works. If I turn my light off, you see how there starts to get a lot more shadows and I'm a lot darker. And a lot of these like little, like I just have a ring light. It's a pretty nominal investment, no big deal at all. And you can change like, this is the yellow tone, this is the blue tone, this is the white tone. And later I can put some links to some other lights. Yeah, so Jan, great. I'm so glad I have a question on this as well. Great Zoom backgrounds that you can download. So there are so many great opportunities to download a Zoom background. I've got a couple questions about this actually. So I think in a lot of cases, it warrants having a just standard background that everybody can use. And then there are other cases where I have found that people are using Zoom backgrounds to hide things because they haven't created sort of a backdrop or they haven't figured out where to go in their house. And so I'm not saying one is right or wrong. I've just asked people to really consider like, why are you using a Zoom background? And if the why isn't aligned, then awesome, use it. It's another great way too with your team to create kind of a consistent look across the board when you can download some cool backgrounds. On the same note, I have somebody asking about using a Zoom background. Let's see. Oh yeah, using a Zoom background that has your image or logo on the wall or desk or something in your background. So I'm assuming that's asking like, what are the thoughts on having sort of like you double time, like your logo, all sorts of things. So I actually have a client who every video that they make it in front of a screen that has their logo and their name on it. And that's just what they do. The challenge is that when you go to like a YouTube channel or, their sort of wall of videos, it's hard to know if you've watched it before because it's exactly the same. And if you're wearing something very similar. But that being said, I think the idea is you don't have to like throw your brand on everything because you get your name, like people know who you are. Hopefully you're saying who you are, but you can totally tastefully do it. You can have awards in the background. You can, if you decide you're going to do a branded Zoom background, you just do it in a way so that, your picture isn't right beside you as a person, and just make sure that the positioning is correct. Okay, let's see. Well, here's lots of virtual background questions. Okay, so what are your thoughts on using a virtual background that is a picture of my actual conference room? So, I mean, again, they know you're at home, so I don't know why I would use your actual conference room. But if that makes you feel on brand and like, I don't know. I think I'm going to say that I would just use something different than your actual conference room because it allows people to kind of like have that experience of walking into the actual conference room when the time comes and we get to go back to doing that. All right, let me see if I've answered all these. Yeah, okay. All right, so if anybody needs any help with this, feel free to reach out. This is a simple conversation to figure out kind of what their tiny little tricks and tips to kind of up level what you're doing. If you have a team challenge, feel free to reach out. And I hope that you found this helpful. I mean, again, the idea is really shifting that perspective from, oh, I have to get on Zoom for a tiny meeting to how am I going to play the game of I am going to step it up and show up to build what I am trying to build for 6 months from now, 6 years from now. And if that means doing my hair, putting on makeup, I'm going to take the time to do it. So everybody have an awesome day and let me know if anybody has any other questions. Talk to everybody later.